Peace. Top of the morning. Chapter 2. The keys to empowerment. Any race that loves the world and hates itself will eventually become its own oppressor. The first chapter discussed how slavery generated racism, which created race-based monopolies and vast wealth for whites. These race-based monopolies made whites the proverbial 900-pound gorilla and rendered black Americans null and void as a competitive and productive group in the marketplaces. However, like any monopoly, white racial monopolies are not perfect. They can be beaten. But blacks will need the right combination of skills, appropriate mindsets, clear direction, a sense of group self-interest, and a competitive group spirit in order to compete and win. When these attitudes are properly mixed with our group competitive advantages, we can begin to play real-life Monopoly. In this chapter, we will learn about the keys and tools that can empower Black America and make it unified, self-directed, and economically stronger. Many will ask the questions: is it possible for Black America to transform itself into a state of economic and political competitiveness? Can modern Black America do what 18 previous generations of Blacks failed or were not allowed to do? In this chapter, you will find that the answer to both questions is yes, it can be done, but it will not be easy. It will require Black Americans to make drastic behavior changes. We will have to overcome the primary impediments to Black empowerment: the historical wealth inequality between the races, our own learned inappropriate behavior, and a lack of a national plan. For those who are serious about building the new foundation of group wealth and political power, the first thing we must do is examine how we see, think, and behave regarding racial matters. This chapter will contain many technical concepts that are essential to understanding the action steps and principles recommended in the later chapters. Distorted perspectives. Our experiences give us our point of view. Like Alice in Wonderland, looking into the mirror, what we see is distorted. It is not reality. Yet, what we perceive, we believe, and what we believe eventually controls how we behave. As Black people, we tend to see ourselves and the solutions to our predicament through the eyes of non-Blacks. We have done this for so long that we do not question whether or not our perceptions of reality are accurate. When we fail to challenge what we see and believe, we allow distorted views to lead to inappropriate behaviors. It is now time for us to correct the distortions by changing rather than keeping our perspective. Out-of-the-box thinking. It has been said that the epitome of madness is to do the same thing over and over while fully expecting things to somehow change. We have spent centuries seeking civil rights and social acceptance while our conditions remain relatively fixed. As long as we continue to perceive and respond to our socio-economic situation in the same old manner, we should expect to get the same old results. If we want different results or an improved lifestyle, we have to see, think, and act differently. Our national empowerment plan must be based on new collective out-of-the-box thinking. Every social, political, legal, and economic policy and practice that relates to Black people must be rethought so that we can find creative channels through which we can emerge as a competitive political and economic force. The following line dot puzzle illustrates what we mean by out-of-the-box thinking. Problem is to connect the 9 dots in figure 3, box A, by using only 4 straight lines without taking a pencil or pen off the paper. Most people cannot solve the problem because they are bound and limited by their perspective. They will see the dots as boundaries and they will want to stay as close to the dots as possible. To solve the puzzle, a player must be free enough in his thinking to extend his or her perspective beyond the dots, as indicated in the set of dots in box B. Conventional wisdom and perspectives will neither solve the puzzle of racial justice nor empower Black America. Racial inertia and competing social economic forces are too strong. Black Americans have been locked outside the system for so long that we need to learn a new perspective in order to connect the dots. We got into our dilemma as a group, and since racism is a team or group competition, we must play and win this contest as a group. Our new perspective then must be one of group solidarity. When a skin color team loses, everybody on the team loses, regardless of job, income, or education. In team competition, it is the responsibility of every member of the team to be sure his or her actions result in a team win. A perspective of group solidarity on race matters empowers us to see the world and others through our own eyes and to prioritize our interests and needs above all others. For Black America to place its own group self-interest ahead of every other group does not mean dislike for other groups. It simply means that we have matured politically and economically. It simply means that we have matured politically and economically and will neither love nor treat any other group better than we love or treat ourselves. Following the majority. The premise of our social democracy set the stage for a majority population to dominate and direct. But these special rights and privileges for the majority come with some special obligations. According to the Federalist Papers, which promoted the ratification of the U.S. Constitution, the majority rules, but has an inherent obligation to address the needs and interests of its losing minority population. This obligation is emphasized when the nation has a planned permanent minority. Since the majority society has clearly failed to include the needs and interests of its Black minority population, and its interests are not reflected in the nation's laws, customs, and public policies, it is incumbent upon Black Americans not to blindly follow the majority society. The majority society's needs and interests cannot be placed above those of a Black minority. Playing to win as a team means Black America ought to set its own course rather than continuing to follow a game plan contrary to its own best interests. When a group is in last place within a society, if it continues to follow the pack, it will remain in last place. Playing a game of follow the leader calls to mind a sled team of dogs. Only the lead dog determines direction and sees the changing view. The hind dogs see only the rear end of the dog, that is the head. As long as they stay in the harness and follow the line, the hind dogs will never see where the sled is heading or be able to change the direction. The dogs locked in the rear guarantee that the lead dog will arrive first and get the praise and the comfort of knowing that he is still leading. The hind dog only gets the satisfaction of knowing that what he sees every day will never change. As we shift into an empowerment mode, we are shifting from the perspective of the hind dog to the mindset of the lead dog who can choose a new way. As we wriggle out of the harness and outside the box, it must always be clear that we will no longer have to follow the lead of majority society. The empowerment mode. Empowerment is too frequently used interchangeably with motivation, but the two words are very different. Motivating Blacks or any other group is little more than getting them interested, creating excitement, and making them feel good. For instance, Blacks as a group can be motivated to travel and see the world, but if they lack the money, time, and other resources, they are little more than motivated Blacks who cannot leave home. Empowerment does not simply stimulate interest in travel. It also inspires confidence, and most importantly, it provides tools and other needed resources necessary to accomplish the goals. Without the benefit of empowerment tools such as money, transportation, hotels, passports, and other personal necessities, it is highly unlikely that motivated Blacks will be doing any travel. Motivational and inspirational speakers, workshops, and books are designed primarily to make people feel good. However, Black people have been in a socioeconomic ditch for centuries. Rather than motivating them to feel good about themselves while they remain in the ditch, they need the confidence and resources to get out. Thus, we must begin our self-empowerment by obtaining both confidence and the tools. We need tools that give us a clear group direction and sense of togetherness. We need tools that prepare and guide us to evaluate and formulate our best interests. Our tools must always remind us of who we are and where we are. We are a very special people with a unique history. Therefore, rather than seeing race matters through the traditional rose-colored glasses, we must begin our solutions by looking realistically through the race-colored glasses. The rest of this chapter offers Black Americans these new glasses in the context of the Powernomics National Plan. The 4 Powernomics empowerment tools for Black America are 1. An empowerment culture, 2. A group vision, 3. The paradigm of ethno-aggregation, and 4. The paradigm of vertical integration. The remainder of this book will explain the need for these tools and show how Black America can best use them. The first key to empowerment, an empowerment culture. Since humans rely on culture for survival, culture is an essential empowerment tool for Black Americans. Culture usually refers to the norms or systems of behavior and shared values that are passed on from one generation to another. Essentially, culture is a script that is never neutral in its purposes. It either empowers or de-empowers a group. What it does to a group depends in large measure upon the position the group holds in the societal pecking order of acceptability, and whether they are in a group or an out-group, and whether they are an in-group or an out-group. Culture's most important function is to promote cohesiveness and trust that bind members together through values such as group loyalty, pride, and respect. It is through culture that members of a group know who and what they are and how to behave. Peace. The culture of America's dominant society is Eurocentric. Through its culture, it promotes its own values as the baseline against which every other group is compared. Blacks must build a foundation on the roots of their culture as illustrated in Figure 4. The dominant culture promotes negative images of black people, expropriates their culture, then labels blacks culturally deprived, inferior, dependent, non-producing, compromising, powerless, impoverished, politically inept, and non-competitive. Eurocentric culture incorporates the Horatio Alger myth of ethnic success and individualism. The myth asserts that individuals who are hardworking and who live exemplary, pious lives can always achieve and move up the economic and social ladder. Sociologists and politicians buy into the Horatio Alger myth, then use it as a yardstick by which to rate the cultures of entering ethnic immigrants. Over the last century, these authorities have systematically ranked various ethnic immigration groups and their cultures, then granted them the option of assimilating into the majority society while retaining their respective cultures. Black Americans remain an official outgroup and are chastised as culturally deprived for lacking middle-class white values. To keep blacks de-empowered, the dominant society promotes the myth that all ethnic and racial groups started out even and at the bottom in America. The Horatio Alger myth gives it the impression that blacks alone are responsible for their failure in American history. The white culture script justifies the racial exclusion, exploitation, and abuse of black people as the official outgroup. Those justifications are transmitted through negative images of blacks that are embedded in the larger culture as well as black American culture. These images devalue black culture and in effect script blacks against themselves. Since Jews, Asians, and Cubans are the groups most often held up as the cultural models of success, let's look at them and see if and how their culture empowered them. Without a doubt, Jews have been one of the most successful immigrants to enter the country. Jewish economic success in America is usually attributed to their cultural values of being a thrifty, ambitious, commercially aggressive, and close-knit group. They are also known for their business acumen and their cultural ethic of taking care of members of their own community. These are valued Eurocentric cultural characteristics too. However, historical analysis reveals other factors in the American society that empowered Jews. They came to America at the right time, just as the country was beginning to industrialize. Jews had occupational skills that were centuries old that allowed them to capture certain industries and move immediately into semi-skilled and skilled positions in factories in this country. The American economy provided a place for them to build shops and do contract labor that produced products that did not require a lot of capital. Jews then became rich and powerful in America, in part because of their cultural values, but more because they were accepted and allowed to become empowered by America's culture. They built a new culture around their economic base, which empowered them even more. Similarly, Asians and Cubans are held up as models because their cultures promote education, patience, determination, hard work, discipline, and family ties. These ethnic groups ranked higher in the pecking order than black people even before they placed a foot on American soil. Both Asians and Cubans came to this country as well-educated immigrants. During the 60s and early 70s, more than 50% of the Cuban refugees entering South Florida were professional people. Similarly, a study of 52 Korean businesses in 4 cities found that 70% of the owners had a college education. This nation unfairly compares some of the brightest Asian and Cuban immigrants against the whole of Black America. This country's political overclass knows that blacks have not had the same educational training and business experiences that maturing ethnic immigrant groups have had. If middle-class culture values are so important to success in our competitive society, then it is white society itself that must accept the blame for culturally depriving blacks for centuries. Whites have combined the myth of biological inferiority with the notion of cultural inferiority and deprivation. Both notions promote the de-empowerment of blacks. The mainstream society has demonstrated it has no responsibility or interest in helping put Black Americans' culture's house in order. Therefore, we alone as Black Americans must now construct our own culture of empowerment. We cannot be empowered by reading the role others have written for us. To improve our condition and empower our team, we must rewrite our own script. We must construct and institutionalize a culture that is based on pragmatism, and group strengths that generate sustained high levels of intergroup trust and group pride. How do we do this? Black people's culture must psychologically and emotionally elevate. Black people's culture must psychologically and emotionally elevate them and give them grounds to be confident and proud people. It should promote the ethic that blacks are a very special people. Blacks are the original people on the earth. In this country, they are the only non-immigrants. Blacks should be proud of and promote the fact that they have a natural talent for generating music, dance, and language. They have extraordinary emotional and physical strength that took them through 300 years of slavery and Jim Crow and allows them to dominate in nearly all the sports they are allowed to enter. Really, it was about 2,000 years of slavery if you want to include the trans-Saharan slave trade, but that's another story. Black slaves were noted for their ability to perform hard work. Blacks should adopt and inculcate a hard work ethic into their empowerment culture. Prior to their enslavement, blacks were a strong communal society that believed in the concept and value of an extended family. Black Americans have made the most spectacular educational achievement on earth. After 300 years of slavery and forced illiteracy, they reduced their illiteracy rate by half within 30 years. And amazingly, they educated themselves during an oppressive and deprived period during Reconstruction. No other racial or ethnic group can legitimately make such a claim. These spectacular accomplishments in education must be used as benchmarks that today's black students can reach as we endeavor to create new educational models based on our new empowerment plan. Blacks should build their empowerment culture around the characteristics listed in bold type. These cultural elements would build group confidence, self-esteem, and prepare blacks to cope with reality. To achieve our empowerment culture, our schools, families, and churches will have to mentally prepare our team to take calculated risks. As we travel a new road, we will have many choices to make regarding economic development, politics, education, and our places of worship. Our traditional institutions must accept the double responsibility of educating and psychologically conditioning blacks to take calculated business risks and compete in areas other than sports and entertainment. Our institutions should help us practice the process of collecting information and assessing it through a set of principles, then making an informed decision, taking a calculated risk. The willingness to risk failure allows the exploration that leads to success. Needless to say, one should never take risks simply for the sake of risk. But as a noted military strategist once said, as he was preparing to do battle, if you take risks, you may still fail. But if you do not take risks, you will surely fail. Second key to empowerment, a group vision. A group vision functions to provide a clear collective destination and a sense of how it should be achieved. Black Americans are very fortunate to have survived nearly 4 centuries of slavery and Jim Crow semi-slavery without a vision of where they would be going and how they should get there. We did not even have the benefit of a group dream until the end of the Black Civil Rights Movement. The dream, however, was based on very broad and amorphous concepts of freedom, equality, and justice. All of these concepts are relative and very difficult to define. On the other hand, they are palatable, I believe that's the word, and excellent motivators, especially for a group whose acceptable options at the time were relegated to marching and demonstrating. Today, we need more practical, tangible, and measurable racial goals and supportive activities that bear directly on resolving our wealth, inequality, or inappropriate behavior patterns. We should accept nothing less. History is full of examples of how oppressed groups envisioned their escape by taking power for themselves. For those who did obtain freedom or justice, their vision was always the key that unlocked the door to their group's resources. In biblical times, Moses had a vision for his people that drove him and thousands of poor Jews through almost insurmountable obstacles to the envisioned promised land. Moses had a vision, not a dream. A vision means the mind's eye is wide open. A dream implies the mind is asleep. Jews today remain committed to Moses' vision of a powerful, self-sufficient minority religious group. Thousands of years after their exodus, Jews in Israel are politically and economically powerful. There are more recent examples here in the United States of a minority group with a group vision. Generations of poor European immigrants came to the country with a vision of expropriating Indian land and using free black labor to shape a new world. The vision resulted in the building of the United States of America, the world's greatest superpower. Spanish-speaking people, now called Hispanics, are another example. They have a vision. Not only are they coming to America for an improved quality of life, but according to William V. Flores and Rena Ben Mayer, In their book, Latino Cultural Citizenship and Public Statements by the Council of La Raza, Hispanics are coming to America with a vision of becoming the majority minority over blacks. While black Americans are fighting the battles of civil rights for everybody, these two authors explain that Hispanics are working to have cultural rights equated to blacks' legal rights. Jeffrey Fox, in his book, Hispanic Nation, proclaimed that a new ethnic identity is being constructed in the United States, made up of Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, and all other Spanish-speaking groups that will surpass blacks in population and change the political focus from black and white to white and Hispanic. Their vision is to achieve economic and political power over major geographic areas of the United States, especially the southwestern and southeastern states. Whether Jews, European whites, or Hispanics, all of these groups have used their group vision to move their people. The collective vision is in the mind's eyes of the group, and it plays a vital role in guiding the group's behavior. Our national empowerment vision will function the same way. It will be used to focus our attention, give us a single-minded purpose, serve as a template for decision-making, and establish group direction. For example, when Black America is asked, which way is north? They will not all point in different directions. Their direction will be anchored in reality. Black America must have a vision that describes what black people need and what they are capable of becoming by a specific year in the future. In order not to be pie in the sky, the vision must be linked to a realistic plan. I'm going to stop right there. Peace. Have a good morning. We'll continue this later.